بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. To proceed. Well, today inshallah I will go over the chapter on Tayammum or dry ablution. Tayammum. Imam ibn Qudamah rahimahullah ta'ala said here, wasfuhu. He started by the description and then he went over the conditions and then he talked about the invalidators. We will talk a little bit more about what the points that Ibn Qudamah raised here, rahimahullah, but we will still try to be brief. He said, وصفه أن يضرب يديه على الصعيد الطيب ضربة واحدة فيمسح بهما وجهه وكفيه. The description of it is to strike the wholesome sa'id, and sa'id is the surface of the earth. According to the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, it is the soil only. But just remember, sa'id is the earth, the surface of the natural surface of the earth. So the description of it is to strike the wholesome sa'id once with his two hands, and then wipe his face and hands with them. This is based on the saying of the Prophet ﷺ to Ammar. Okay, so basically if this is the natural surface, let's say this is the natural surface of the earth here. If you Shafi'i or Hanbali, let's say this is soil. So that's what you're doing. That's it, you're done. Here. You don't need to strike twice. It's one strike. Imam Ahmad was asked about people who strike twice. He said that this is something that they added. But Imam Qudamah says here it's permissible, but it is basically one strike that was prescribed, and then after this one strike, you wipe your face and your two hands up to the wrist. The Shafi'is, they wipe up to here. The Jumhur wipes up to the wrists. This seems to be stronger, and this is the position in the madhab, to wipe up to the wrists, not to the elbows. Okay. Based on the statement of the Prophet ﷺ to Ammar, لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لعمار إنما كان يكفيك هكذا وضرب بيديه الأرض فمسح. This is based on the saying of the Prophet ﷺ to Ammar, it would have been enough or sufficient for you to do like this. And he struck the earth with his hands and wiped. He said this to Ammar because Ammar said to him that I did not find water, so I rolled over the dust, like a beast, to basically do tayammum for his entire body. Ammar figured that he would do tayammum the entire body, like ghusl type thing, because he was junub, he needed to make ghusl. So he made ghusl with the soil. So the Prophet ﷺ told him it would have been sufficient for you to just do this. It is symbolic. You're not really cleaning yourself like you do in ghusl with water, but it is symbolic. Then وَضَرَبَ بِيَدَيْهِ الْأَرْضَ فَمَسَحَ. And then Imam ibn Qudamah did not finish the hadith. فَمَسَحَ بِهِمَا وَجْهَهُ وَكَفَّيْهِ. And then he wiped with them his face and kaffayhi. Kaffayhi refers to hands up to the wrists, not hands up to the elbows. Kaffayhi refers to hands up to the wrists, not hands up to the elbows. And that is the proof of the Hanbalis against the Shafi'is in this regard. And the proof for the Jumhur against the Shafi'is in this regard. The Shafi'is have a hadith that's reported by Daraqutni, but according to the vast majority of scholars of hadith, this hadith is not authentic and it is shaz. It's counter to the report of the thiqat, or the report of the trustworthy narrators, that the Prophet ﷺ wiped just up to the wrists, not the elbows. Yeah, and I'm saying it is shaz because it's counter to the report of the thiqat who said that he wiped up to the wrists, not to the elbows. So, clear? Clear. This is the description of the tayammum. And then he said, وَإِن تَيَمَّمَ بِأَكْثَرْ مِنْ ضَرْبَ أَوْ مَسَحَ أَكْثَرْ جَازَ. If he made tayammum with more than one strike or wiped more than once, it would be permissible. If he made, wiped more than once or struck the earth more than once, it would be permissible. What has been prescribed by the Prophet is one strike and then you wipe, and you're done. Now, he said that this is the description of tayammum, but he did not say what is a fard here and what is not a fard, because it is pretty simple. It's just these two acts are required. They are fard. It's pretty simple. And then he talks about the conditions. But in the Hanbali madhab, these are both required. It is also required to do muwala and tartib if this tayammum is in place of wudu. Muwala is succession, tartib is following the order. So muwala is basically to do them back to back, face and hands. To not separate between the face and the hands. Not separate between the face and the hands. You know how in ghusl we say that you could separate, like you could wash your right side and then come back an hour later and wash your left side? I mean, if you have to do that, well, with the scarcity of water, it could have been a practical scenario, by the way. And it could be practical even without the scarcity of water. Someone called you out and then you had to run. So, going back to the tayammum. Tayammum should be pretty simple. You're just wiping your face. But they wanted to point out that if you separate between the face and hands, and this tayammum was in place of wudu, not in place of ghusl, in place of wudu, then your tayammum is invalid if you separate between the face and the hands. Clarification or
What do you mean by
expansion?
Just one clarification. The other opinion that says to start with the hands before the face, would this opinion say that that's invalid because there's no tartib, not instead of starting with the face and the hands?
According to this opinion, yes. The tartib in the order of the hadith of Ammar is wajib, is fard, required. The same order of the hadith of Ammar. And then then the last thing that is also required, but it is not fard, it is wajib, is tasmiyah in the Hanbali madhab. That you must also say Bismillah in the Hanbali madhab before your tayammum. Clear? So adding to the wiping the face and the hands, tartib and mu'ala, the order and the succession, and as far as the furud are concerned, and add to them tasmiyah as wajib as well, saying Bismillah. Then Imam Qudamah rahimahullah said, وَلَهُ شُرُوطٌ أَرْبَعَةٌ. It has 4 conditions. In order for your tayammum to be valid, in order for you to be permitted to make tayammum to begin with, there must be 4 conditions fulfilled. The first condition, he said, أحدها العجز عن استعمال الماء إما لعدمه. He will say, أحدها العجز عن استعمال الماء. The first condition is inability to use water. إما لعدمه, because of its shortage. أو لخوف الضرر من استعماله لمرض أو برد شديد, or for fear of harm if one uses it due to sickness or severe cold. أو لخوف العطش على نفسه أو رفيقه أو بهيمته, or if he worries about himself or his property, or for fear that he, his companion, or his beast may suffer from thirst if he used this water to make wudu. أو لخوف على نفسه أو ماله في طلبه, or if he worries about himself or his property if he sought it, if he looked for it, searched for it, the water. أو لخوف على نفسه أو تعذر إلا بثمن كبير, or if he can't obtain it except at an expensive price. Okay, so you see how, wallahi, our deen is very practical and very easy, and there is no haraj in our deen. There is no hardship in our deen. So he's not telling you only that if there is no water, inability to use water is when there is no water, but he's adding to this the shortage, lack of water, ad-darar, fear of harm, if one uses it due to sickness or severe cold, whether this sickness is a general sickness or like some wound or some part of your body where you cannot use water. Keep in mind that if there is a wound on one of your wudu limbs and you can wipe with your wet hand over the wound, you do not need to make tayammum. You don't need to make tayammum. So if you can wipe with your wet hand, no ghusl, no washing, just wiping over the wound. If ghusl will harm the wound, washing will harm the wound, there is a concession for you to wipe on the wound and wash the rest of the wudu parts, and in this case you will not need to make tayammum. You will need to make tayammum if you have a wound that you cannot wash and you cannot wipe over. In this case, you wash the rest of the wudu parts and make tayammum for not washing that particular part which has the wound and the parts around it that you want to also not wash out of fear that harm may ensue. So, أو برد شديد or severe cold. Then he said, أو لخوف العطش على نفسه أو رفيقه أو بهيمته, or for fear that he, his companion, or his beast may suffer from thirst. His companion, his beast, that language may make you think that if it was not your companion, you don't need to worry about them. But it is not true. It is clear in the books of the madhab, it is آدمي أو بهيمة, كل محترم من آدمي أو بهيمة. Any respected life, whether it is a human being or an animal. So they said, even the dog, you know how we have some sensitivity to dogs as Muslims, but a dog other than the rabid dog, you don't give them the water, your wudu water, al-kalb al-aqur. But other than those dogs, you give you give the dog the water of your wudu and you make tayammum. Because it's not just your livestock. It is not just for self regard, because you want to keep your cow or your sheep no. It is even a stray dog that is not a rabid dog. You give them the water and you make tayammum. Adami muhtaram is any human being except the one that is harbi, that is basically trying to kill you. In this case, you probably do not necessarily want to give them the water. But any other human being, then you give them the water to drink, and you make tayammum. Then he said, أو لخوف على نفسه أو ماله في طلبه, or if he worries about himself or his property if he sought it. But that is not people that are coward, or people that are obsessive. If that is when it is likely that you will lose your property. If you left your property and went away to look for water, it is likely that you come back and not find your property. Not if you have good company, good people, and so on, and you leave your backpack with them and tell them, I'll just walk here. Yeah, so that would not be like legitimate fear. We're talking about legitimate fear, reasonable people. أو تعذر إلا بثمن كثير, or if he cannot obtain it except at an expensive price. And in this case, even if you have the money, Allah does not, basically cause you hardship. And that is also of the aspects of removal of hardship. Someone, this bottle of water sells usually for $1. If someone told you, and you can afford it, and it is not basically, it's not burdensome to buy it for $1. Someone tells you, and you don't have wudu for your tayammum. We said that wudu is just one bottle of water, right? This is 1/2 liter, so this is enough for wudu. So someone tells you, I'll sell it to you for $3. You don't need to take it. You make tayammum. You don't need to take it for $3. You make tayammum. Someone tells you, I'll sell it to you for $1.20. You take it. Because in this case, يسير. الفرق يسير. The difference is just, trivial. It's not really like you're not being exploited here. So that is, then someone has this bottle of water and gives it to you for free. Hiba. If this is hibat minna, you don't need to take it. If this is hiba so that he can count it on you as a favor, if this is a gift so that he can count it on you as a favor, you don't need to take it. You don't need to subject yourself to mean people, to the so you don't need to take it. But if this is like a good person, like a normal person, even not a good person, just a normal person, and he wants to really to give you the bottle of water, then you must take it. Then tayammum is not permissible for you. If it is hiba. If it is qard, also you must take it. If it is a loan, he's loaning to you this bottle of water, you return him a bottle of water, or loaning to you the price of the bottle of water, the $1, you must take it. But يجب قبوله قرضا لا استقراضا. You do not need to borrow, to ask someone to lend you the bottle of water or the $1 to purchase the bottle of water. So if someone gives it to you as a loan, as a gift, you take it. Unless they want to count it as a favor, then you don't need to. But you don't need to go out and borrow if you don't have the money to purchase. And that teaches us what? الاعتداد بالنفس, that people should have self-respect. You do not subject yourself to,
Humiliation.
Humiliation. You do not subject yourself to humiliation. Are we done with this part? So inability to use water can come in different shades. Inability to use water. Then he said, فإن أمكنه استعماله في بعض بدنه أو وجد ماء لا يكفيه لطهارته استعمله وتيمم للباقي. If he could use it on part of his body, or he found some water but it is insufficient for his purification, then he should use it and make tayammum for the rest. Now, given that you will use it and you're not going to go thirsty, or your other human being or other animal will become thirsty. We're saying that you have enough, given that all of your other needs are fulfilled, water for cooking, water for drinking, all of your other needs are fulfilled. And then you have a little bit extra. But the extra that you have is half this bottle. Will that be enough for your wudu? Likely not. So half this bottle may not be. You use it, and then on whatever body parts that you will be able to wash. Because وَإِذَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِأَمْرٍ, this is one of the hadiths that come that are highly featured here in this particular chapter. وَإِذَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِأَمْرٍ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. And when I command you to do something, do of it that which you can, as much as you can, as much as you can. So you can wash whatever body parts, wudu parts with water that you have, and for the rest, you make tayammum.
What is the hikmah? What is the hikmah in that? Because all you do is you stand and you wipe your face. It's not the other bodies.
Yeah, but because the hikmah is two things. One is that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِذَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِأَمْرٍ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, and I command you to do something, do of it as much as you can. And here, this issue is controversial, but here is the rationale of this position. Here, you do have enough water, you do have some water to wash some body parts that are meant to be washed in wudu. And those body parts are meant to be washed for wisdom. And if you can wash them, wash them. And for the rest, you make tayammum. The other rationale behind this is that you're not considered عاجز عن وجد الماء أو عاجز, or the ma is not considered to be معدوم when you have some. The ma is not considered to be inaccessible, non-existent when there is already some water. So you use this water until you become lacking of water, Now, then, commencement of the prayer time. The Imam ibn Qudamah tells us of the other condition, and the three other conditions will be more controversial. He said, والثاني دخول الوقت فلا يتيمم لفريضة قبل وقتها ولا لنافلة في وقت النهي عنها. Second is the commencement of the prayer time. One should not make tayammum for a mandatory prayer before its time or for a recommended prayer during the time of its prohibition, because now you cannot pray this. So you wanted to pray the sunnah before Maghrib. Don't make tayammum for it before Adhan al-Maghrib, because before Adhan al-Maghrib you cannot pray that sunnah, right? Wait until Adhan al-Maghrib and then make tayammum. Now, this and many other things, this and the expiry of tayammum and the requirement of having an intention basically to intend the particular act of worship, all of this disagreement is based on like a philosophical question. Does tayammum, or a foundational, if you don't like the word philosophy, a foundational question, does tayammum permit the ibadah or remove the impurity? رافع للحدث أو مبيح للعبادة. It permits the, okay, this is the position of the Jumhur. Okay, so the Jumhur will say, who are the Jumhur here? Most of the Malikis, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis. Okay? Tayammum is mubih, which literally means permitter. It permits you to make a particular ibadah, but it does not remove your hadath. It does not remove your ritual impurity. It just allows you to make this particular ibadah. Now, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, and according to one position in the Hanbali madhab that is not the popular position in the madhab or the authorized position, but this is what Ibn Taymiyyah chose in one of his books, even though in another book he chose the other position, but in one of his books he chose this position. And it has been also the Zahiri position, the position of the Zahiris, rahimahumullah jami'an, hafiz al-ahya'a minhum. So all of those said that tayammum is actually rafi', remover. It removes your ritual impurity. It just works like water. It makes you now pure. You're ritually pure. In this case, if it is rafi' للحدث, if it removes the hadath, then you can make tayammum at any time. It never expires until you break your tayammum, which is break your wudu or find water. That's expiration only. And you do not need to intend a particular act of worship. You're just making tayammum to remove the hadath, to remove the ritual impurity. You could use this tayammum for any act of worship forever until you break it or you find water. Clear? That is based on the position of the Hanafis, a report within the Hanbali madhab, the choice of Ibn Taymiyyah, and the position of the Zahiris. Keep in mind that this position, because it's so attractive, and I find it attractive, some Malikis and Shafi'is also sided with it, because it's really an attractive position. Because tayammum was made in place of the water, and al-badal lahu hukm al-mubdal. So the substitute takes the rulings of its counterpart, substitute. They're both substitutes for each other. They substitute for each other. So at any rate, if you take that position that tayammum is rafi', remover of impurity, then this condition, the commencement of time, will not be applicable. You just make tayammum anytime, and it will be with you for the rest of the day, for the rest of whatever, until you break it or you find water. That's the commencement of time. Then intention.
معلش سؤال.
Yes.
يعني تيممنا بعدين رحنا ولسه في وضوء واجا صلاة بس في مي، بنرجع بنعيد الوضوء؟
طبعا.
ما في احنا لسه ما
once you find water, your tayammum breaks. نعم. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الصعيد الطاهر وضوء المسلم 10 سنين وإن لم يجد الماء 10 سنين فإذا وجدت الماء فأمسه جلدك. فإذا وجدته الماء فأمسه. Once you find the water, let it touch your body. He said that the pure surface of the earth is purification, a means of purification for the believer for 10 years if he does not find water. But once you find water, let it touch your skin. So finding the wudu breaks your tayammum. And we will come to this at the end. Finding the water breaks your tayammum. Just like you break your tayammum by all the nullifiers of wudu. Finding the water is an additional one here. If you are in salah, then that is controversial. Then if you are in salah, then the Hanbalis and Hanafis will tell you, come out of the salah. The Malikis and Shafi'is and one report in the Hanbali madhab will tell you, carry on with your salah. But if you're outside of the salah, all of them will tell you, you don't have purity anymore. Once you have found the water, just use the water and make tayammum. Will you need to repeat? هل تجب الإعادة؟ لا. You will not need to repeat. Whatever you prayed, that's it. You prayed it. You do not need to repeat after you found the water. Okay. So the commencement of time. If you guys will take that position, the Hanafi, and assortment of madhahib here, then you need to worry. You don't need to worry about commencement of time over expiration of tayammum by the going out of time. The third is the intention. He said, الثالث النية فإن تيمم لنافلة لم يصلي بها فرضا وإن تيمم لفريضة فله فعلها وفعل ما شاء من الفرائض والنوافل حتى يخرج وقتها. If one made tayammum for a recommended prayer, he must not pray a mandatory prayer with it. if he made tayammum for a mandatory prayer, he can perform it and other mandatory and recommended ones until its time is out. Until its time is out. If we believe it is a remover, then this condition is not applicable. If you do not believe it's a remover and you want to follow the authorized position in the Hanbali madhab, then when you make tayammum, you have to intend the particular act of worship that you're making tayammum for. Intend the highest one, you know. So intend the farida, so that you could do the recommended acts. And you could do also other faridas, like nazr, vowed prayers, like fawa'id, missed prayers. So I made tayammum for dhuhr today. Yarhamkallah. I will make tayammum for dhuhr today. Hanbali wise, I'll have to wait until the azan of dhuhr, and then make my tayammum for dhuhr, and then pray with this. I made it for the dhuhr, the farida. I will pray for this, all of the sunan attached to this farida, and any vowed prayers, manzur, vowed prayers, and any missed prayers from before that I will pray from here all the way up till Asr, the Adhan of Asr. Up until the Adhan of Asr.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Okay. You want to be Hanbali here? Because if you're not Hanbali, you don't need to worry about all of this. But if you are Hanbali, then you have to wait after the Dhuhr. You have to wait after the Adhan of Dhuhr, and then you make the tayammum. If you make tayammum for the Sunnah before Dhuhr, it will expire after you pray this Sunnah, and you cannot make the farida of Dhuhr with this tayammum. But if you make tayammum intending that this tayammum is for the Dhuhr prayer, the fard, the Dhuhr prayer itself, you could pray anything from Dhuhr to Asr, including missed prayers, vowed prayers, Sunnah prayers, anything up until Asr, you could do it with this one tayammum. Good? Huh?
You're traveling, you're combining your salah.
You could, in this case, pray Asr with this same tayammum. If you intend that you are combining, then your tayammum, you're combining Dhuhr and Asr because you're traveling, your tayammum will last you all the way until Maghrib. If you're traveling, will last you all the way until Maghrib. From this time until Maghrib, you could pray any prayer that is farida, sunnah, manzur, etc., which is vowed prayers. If you're not taking the Hanbali position, the authorized Hanbali position, and you're taking the easier one, which is supported by some Hanbalis like Ibn Taymiyyah, and it is the Hanafi position and the Zahiri position, and supported by some Malikis and Shafi'is, and say that the tayammum removes the ritual impurity, you do not need to worry about making an intention for a particular act of worship. You just make tayammum with the intention of removing your impurity. You could pray anything from the time you make tayammum, anything, do anything with this tayammum until you break it by breaking the wudu, the nullifiers of wudu, or until you find water. The fourth condition is soil. الرابع التراب فلا يتيمم إلا بتراب طاهر له غبار. One may not use other than wholesome soil that has particles of dust, because Allah said minhu. فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم منه, and then wipe over your face and hands of it. And of it means that something will stick to your hands really. And that does not apply to sand, it does not apply to rocks, because they don't stick to your hand. It is the soil that has particles of dust that will actually stick to your hand. And that is the rationale of the Shafi'is and Hanbalis. That is what they used to say, that soil is required. And in this case, Imam Ahmad even فكان يعجبه أن يحمل التراب إذا خرج مسافرا. He used to like that people carry soil with them for tayammum if they have to go out and they worry that they may not find turab because they traverse desert and the desert only has sand or rocks and they may not find turab that has particles of dust. So carry some with him, turab. Some other Hanbali said you don't have to. But anyway, the Hanafis and the Malikis are the easiest in this regard, and their madhab is really the nicest in this regard, because it is also in conformity with some of the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Malikis said any surface of the earth except for gold and silver, because they said that anything that is the natural surface of the earth, anything that's the natural surface of the earth, gold and silver because they said it's not humble to make tayammum, but any natural surface of the earth, that includes ice in the Arctics, any surface of the earth. We could use some of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to substantiate the position of the Malikis. The Hanbalis to some extent also, they said the surface of the earth, but they have some conditions. The Malikis are the sort of permissive, I don't know if there's a good word, but the easiest in this regard. So the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Jabir, this is a muttafaq alayh hadith, وجعلت لي الأرض مسجدا وطهورا فأيما رجل من أمتي حضرته الصلاة أو أدركته الصلاة فليصل. And so the whole earth was made for me as a masjid. The whole earth, because as Muslims, we don't have to pray in a temple. We can pray anywhere. So the whole earth was made for me as a masjid, and the وَطَهُورًا, and the whole earth was made for me as tahur, a means of purification. So whenever a man of my nation, and rajul here could mean a man or a woman, whenever a man of my nation, whenever the man of my nation, whenever the time of prayer comes for a man of my nation, or enters for a man of my nation, then let him pray. Then let him pray. Let him pray. In a report from Ahmad and Tabarani from Abu Umama reported, فَعِنْدَهُ مَسْجِدُهُ وَطَهُورُهُ. So, فَأَيُّمَا رَجُلٌ مِّنْ أُمَّتِي حَضَرَتْهُ الصَّلَاةُ فَعِنْدَهُ مَسْجِدُهُ وَطَهُورُهُ. So whenever a man of my nation, whenever the time of the prayer comes for a man of my nation, he will have by him, عِنْدَهُ, he will have by him his masjid and his purification. His masjid and his purification. So if someone is in the Arctic or Antarctica or wherever he is, and there is only ice around him, then if he applies this hadith literally, then he will say to himself, the Prophet told me that I will have my masjid and my tahur by me, so this must be it, ice. So he strikes on the ice and he wipes. So that would be okay, Maliki wise. Hanbali wise, if he has ice, he wipes with this ice his wudu parts, and if the ice melts on his wudu parts, then he does not need to repeat that prayer. And if it doesn't, then he wipes all of the wudu parts with the ice and then repeats the prayer. If you want to be Maliki, be Maliki. That's fine. I'm completely fine with this. So
What's the problem with the melting?
After class.
melting, because melting will mean partial ghusl or partial ghusl, partial washing. Not melting, there is no partial washing. So he will. Well, so the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, they don't give up, by the way. It's not like it's easy. Because in some of the reports of the hadith, وَجُعَلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَتُرْبَتُهَا طَهُورًا. and the land, the whole land was made for me as a masjid, and its turba, its soil was made for me as tahur. And this, وَتُرْبَتُهَا طَهُورًا, the Hanafis and Malikis said that this does not mean taqeed al-mutlaq. This does not mean qualifying the absolute. It just points out to the preference of the turab over other surfaces of the earth. So if you do have the turab and you have a different surface of the earth that's also natural, then you should seek at turab, and that is preferred by their agreement. Is that clear? You have turab and you have sand. You strike on the turab, not the sand. Preferred by their agreement. Not a condition, though, according to the Hanafis and Malikis. Okay, and then Imam ibn Qudamah rahimahullah said, ويبطل التيمم ما يبطل طهارة الماء وخروج الوقت والقدرة على استعمال الماء وإن كان في الصلاة. What invalidates the wet ablution invalidates the tayammum, and that is by consensus. But that is by consensus. It invalidates the tayammum by consensus. What if someone did not have turab in extraordinary conditions? Extraordinary condition. Like, no natural surface of the earth. In a prison cell. Something. No natural surface of the earth. What does he do? He prays without purity, without purification. By the very vast majority, he will still pray without wudu, without tayammum. And guess what? He will not need to repeat, according to the stronger position. He will not need to repeat. He just prays. So if you're praying and you break your, you break what? You don't have anything to break because you're not pure to begin with. But let us say you're praying and still you do one of those nullifiers of wudu. You pass away, and whatever happens to you when you're praying. What do? You come out of the prayer and start all over, because it is unbefitting of the prayer to be breaking your wudu or whatever. Yeah.
Unless it's incessant.
Huh?
Unless it's incessant.
Unless it is the permanent hadath, which in this case you don't need to worry about it. Yes.
This means if you're in a room like this, you would have to walk out to a place that has soil or actual,
Oh, you have to exert a reasonable effort to find water or soil. You have to exert reasonable effort. He said that if you're fear that you get lost or you get robbed or your property is lost or something happens to you, you don't need to go too far. But reasonable effort.
If I'm like on the 15th floor of the building and I need to, there's no water or anything.
You guys ask me many questions about the reasonable effort now, which I refuse to answer because it has to be, because it's subjective. Reasonable effort. Because the scenarios will not.
My mother had a major surgery.
Yeah.
Not able to move or to wash herself or anything. So what she did was she just used the floor in our apartment, which is like on the 4th floor. It's not dirt or soil or anything.
Does she have carpet?
Carpet.
That carpet will have dust. Well, and the Hanbali said if you could do it even on the saddle of your donkey if it has dust. Yes. But keep in mind, the person who's really sick and cannot do, once you say cannot, that's it. The Sharia gave you the way out. The word cannot is consequential in Sharia.
The water is available, but he fears the full work of, let's say, Maghrib, he's going to miss Asr. Let's say there's a long line at the bathroom. So this is an excuse that he can make Tayammum if he knows that way.
No, not an excuse. Hanbali wise, if he fears that the time will come out, there is water, but he fears that if he made ghusl, the time will come out. So can he make tayammum? No. In the madhab, no. And that's the position that I believe in. Because as long as he's seeking the prerequisites of the prayers, he's doing what he needs to be doing. He is now seeking the prerequisites, the shurut, to fulfill the shurut of the prayer. So if the time goes out while he is seeking the prerequisites of the prayer, he is exempt, he's fine. And since there is water, he is not allowed to do tayammum in the madhab. So what invalidates the wet ablution invalidates the tayammum. The other invalidators are, and that's by consensus, the other invalidators are ending of the prayer time, and we said ending of the prayer time, this will be for those madhahib. Ending of the prayer time, for the people who believe it's a permitter, will invalidate the tayammum. For this group, it does not. The end of the prayer time. Then, وَالْقُدْرَ عَلَى اسْتِعْمَالِ الْمَاءِ, and the ability to use water by consensus. By consensus. وَالْقُدْرَ عَلى اسْتِعْمَالِ الْمَاءِ. وَإِنْ كَانَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ, even if he was in prayer, meaning that they sent to someone to bring water, and he's praying, and then he looks and he sees this person coming back with 2 buckets that seem to be full of water in his hand. Should he come out? Yes, he should come out according to the Hanafis and Hanbalis. No, he does not come out according to the Malikis and Shafi'is. He can carry on with his prayer since he already started, and a report in the Hanbali madhab. There is no clear text here to make this, to end this disagreement. If you just want to follow the madhab, you come out. If you really feel strongly that, in the other position, then you just carry on with your prayer. No clear text here to make the decision or to end the disagreement or the controversy. That brings us to the end of this chapter on Tayammum, inshallah. Next week we will be going over Hayd and Nifas, which is menstrual and postpartum bleeding. If you know friends who may benefit, we will do an expanded discussion of the issue. We may take a little bit more time than the allotted time, so we may get a little bit over 2 hours, not by too much, but we will just give that, because that issue is a very confusing issue for many people, particularly for women who, need to be well versed in that area. So أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.